Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad you guys could join us this evening. My name, of course, is Ian, and I am here with you guys tonight at the moment. Eva should be joining me hopefully this evening yet. We're having some technical difficulties, but that is not going to stop us at all. So, let us know, guys, in the chat. Let us know you're here. We, of course, that's the only way we know if you're here, is letting us know. We'll continue on as usual. So our message title, which of course we are continuing in the series with Craig Groeschel, is Ever Wonder Why? And it's been a great series so far. And it's been such a good series, and we're continuing on with that. And this week's message is actually, why didn't God answer my prayer? And oh man, what a good one. I think it's a message that we, of course, all can relate on. And I think it's been really good this week. I know I find myself there every now and then where God just hasn't answered my prayer, or maybe not even answered it in the way I expected it to be. So that really hit some heartstrings for me this week. If you guys, of course, haven't had a chance to watch the message yet, I urge you to get over to our YouTube channel at lifenorth.church on YouTube. All our message series, of course, are there that you guys can watch and get caught up. Watch previous ones, current one, whichever, but get caught up certainly on this series of Ever Wonder Why. So far, it's been really good. We've got a few more weeks to go, and certainly recommend everyone go and watch that. Of course, how was your weeks, guys? Let us know in the chat how things have been going. Maybe something exciting. Maybe it was a fairly non-exciting week, which may be nice. I know for me, sometimes those are always nice when you get those slower weeks and you can just kind of sit back, relax, and enjoy that slower time. My week was pretty good. We actually started setting up Christmas this past weekend, which was, of course, a lot of fun. Getting the Christmas tree out and having my little guy join in and help us, get the tree set up was a lot of fun. And of course, getting the outside lights up. I know for me, I left some of it a little late. All the house stuff was on, but for the most part, I had a few things on the ground to put up for lighting, but that was about the extent of my lighting this year. It does look really good, so very happy with that. Hello to Abe, hello Eva, welcome. Glad you guys could join us this evening. I guess the other exciting thing for me this past week was I actually got back and started Taekwondo again. It's a martial art that I've done for many, many years. Once my son was born, I had to stop. And so after 5 years of not doing it, I was able to have the opportunity to start again. And so my little guy's there, and he's working out twice a week. And so I figured if he's going to be there, I might as well be there, and I might as well be working out too. So super excited about that. That was a real good high for me. And looking forward to continuing on with that and being able to enjoy and experience more of that with my little guy, Emmett. It should be a lot of fun. It was hard. I was a little bit sore, and it was a tough workout, but I'm glad that I did it. Let's see here what we got. Abe. Abe's week, he's saying, was good. Just enjoying being a dad when I come home from work. Yes, I know the feeling, Abe. it is great to be able to come home to that little one. Certainly, as they get older, the coming home is a lot more enjoyable, as they will greet you at the door and be so excited to have you back home. So just be looking forward to that. It is a lot of fun once they get a little bit bigger and certainly more interactive. I've certainly found that to be great as well. Again, from Eva, week again good. Work was crazy as usual, but did get the Christmas tree up as well, which is good. We're right at that season, December starting, of course, this week. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun as we lead into Christmas. Yes. So message, what a great message this week. I'm going to start us off here with actually a few scriptures here, kind of some key ones I think that Craig really focused on, and I think really brought the message, I think, more to life. So our first reading here is in John 14, verses 13 and 14. And it says, "And I will do whatever you ask in my name, so that the Father may be glorified in the Son. You may ask me for anything in my name, and I will do it." And I think that's amazing. Just as we continue on about just, in of course, this message is about prayer, and that you ask God and He will provide. I think is just outstanding. Our next one is in Matthew 5, 23 and 24. "Therefore, if you are offering your gift at the altar, and there remember that your brother or sister has something against you, leave your gift there in front of the altar. First go and reconcile to them, then come and offer your gift." And again, I think an excellent verse. And again, Craig really expanded on these in the message, so please go watch it. He does such a good job with talking about these. But I really like that, where we need to reconcile those hurts, those things that are bothering us, or somebody who's wronged us, that we need to reconcile that first. And it's all about getting our hearts right, because God cares about our hearts and where our hearts are at. And if they're not right, then what we offer isn't right. We need to make that right first. And yeah, I just love that verse. Certainly an excellent verse. So we will jump here to a slight refresh for everybody who's maybe watched it, maybe forgot it. I know it can be easy to forget those things, even though it was just yesterday. But we will dive right in here. So our message title, of course, is "Why Didn't God Answer My Prayer?" And I like how Craig started. It was all about who believes in the power of prayer. I certainly do. I know the power of prayer is very, very powerful. I've seen it, of course, in my life, and what it can do and how powerful it can be. And I like how Craig expanded on that a little further with prayer can be powerful but confusing. And I certainly believe that, because, yeah, sometimes we're praying and we know it can be powerful, but even though we can be confused with the prayer, the outcome, whatever it is, it certainly can be confusing. I like that Craig referenced God as he's not a button to push, as like a vending machine to get that prayer that I need this, push the button. But it's a relationship to be pursued. And man, it's all about that pursuit. And of course, we talked about this last week, that God's all about the relationship, and He wants that, and He wants us to choose that. And so we need to be continually pursuing God and pursuing that relationship to really bring out what prayer and the power of prayer, what it can be. Again, three things that Craig talked about was why maybe they're prayer isn't working right, or maybe you feel it's not working right. And again, maybe you have a broken relationship. Maybe you have the wrong motives for prayer. Maybe it's to self-glorify yourself. That broken relationship, again, somebody who's, wronged you can really do that, as well as your relationship with God. Maybe that's slightly broken, or maybe it's distant. Maybe you believe that God won't do that. He won't do it. God knows that our faith does matter, and our faith is a big part of that prayer. And Craig gave a great story of when him and his wife went to pray for a man with a terminal illness, and he did not pray for him because he didn't have faith that God could heal him. He knew the power of prayer and how powerful it is, but the faith behind what he was praying for, he didn't have at that moment. And he knew that faith is really what brings the power of prayer. And the last one, of course, is maybe God has something different. And I think we lose sight of why maybe our prayers, we feel they're not answered, but they certainly are answered, but maybe answered in a different way than we were expecting them to be. So, yeah, excellent. So as we keep, of course, this in mind, we are going to jump into a few questions here, and we'll see where we get. Please let me know in the chat, maybe an answer or something that came to mind with the question, and I will do my best, of course, to read and respond to these. So our first question, what initial thoughts do you have when you think about prayer? I know for me, early on in my faith journey, finding God, I was actually thinking God was the vending machine, the button. That was my initial thought, that I pray and I would receive. I pray and I get. I pray and I get. And that's not how it works. It took me a while to figure that out. But it doesn't work that way. Prayer is not about you pray and you get. And again, my heart was probably not in the right place. I'm sure some of it was certainly self-motivated for something better for me, not necessarily glorifying God, and certainly not the right part of what we were doing at that time for me. So, yeah, I certainly felt that that's how prayer was, and certainly, of course, felt that I had to pray the right way, or maybe the perfect way. And maybe that's the same for you. Sometimes we feel that if we don't say the right words, or we don't say them in the right order, our prayer's not going to matter, or not going to count. I know I was there, and I always had trouble praying, and it eventually got to the point where it just kind of came together, and it wasn't about the words, it wasn't about how I was saying it. It was all about how my heart was, and how my heart is in the time of prayer, because God, of course, knows what we're thinking, and that's what matters. So it was making sure that my heart was in the right place, and then prayer for me opened up and became much easier. So I don't know what that is for you guys, but let me know in the chat. Love to see what you guys have to say about that one. So let's grab it. Okay, so we're going to dive into another reading. Now, this one comes from Mark chapter 11, verses 24 and 25. Therefore, I tell you, whatever you ask in prayer, believe that you have received it, and it will be yours. And when you stand praying, if you hold anything against anyone, forgive them, so that your Father in heaven may forgive you and your sins. And again, excellent scripture. So, was there a time when you learned how your relationship with others can impact your relationship with God? Why do you think God cares about our relationship with others? Now, of course, that's a big one. And again, previous series, Craig had kind of gone into, who we are around. The people around us influence us significantly, and certainly can change our mind, our thought process, things that we tend to maybe not give a lot of thought about, but really can influence us in a big way. I know for me, as my friends groups, of course, changed throughout school, high school. That really actually changed a lot of my personality, and it impacted my relationship with God. When I found myself around people that weren't believers, or didn't believe really in anything, I found myself tending to lean that direction. Well, maybe there isn't a God. Maybe there isn't this. And it really brought up a lot of questions. And it really, really shook my foundation. Because again, I wasn't around people that really could support me and help me through maybe some of those difficult times. And again, as my friend group shifted and changed, it actually then I started to dive deeper into God's word, with friends that were believers, and again, were there to encourage and help me, and not to pull me away or pull me back or hold me down from what I wanted to seek. And it certainly makes a big difference. Those people can influence you way more than maybe you ever could imagine they can. And certainly for me, that was a big part of it, as friends shifted and changed. I know God definitely cares about my relationships. The people that, of course, are in my life, in my, I would say, very, close circle. I maybe even consider them like my 12 disciples. They are my close 12. These people have been put into my life for a purpose. They're here for a reason. And it's not to hinder me or hold me back. It's to help me grow, to encourage me, to keep me striving and keep me pushing towards God, and to keep me in the direction that He's got for me, and not to have me get sidetracked or moved away or pushed off. And these close people are certainly my support system. They're there for me in the highs, the lows, and I know that God's had them surrounded me for a big purpose. And the people that have been that draw away have certainly been pushed away. They're not close. They're not near me. I don't see them. And that's all because God cares about me and cares about my well-being. And so He's got these people in place for me to help guide me on my journey. So yeah, please let us know in the chat. What's that for you guys? What are those relationships? Maybe you had a similar story to me, where you had different friend groups and your relationship with God changed. And maybe now you have a, again, strong, close group that God's put there around you to help guide you. And maybe that's your story as well. But let us know in the chat. We, of course, would love to hear from you guys. It's very important, because we want to, again, continue and stay connected. We've got Eva. She loves live prayer. She does it, of course, live every Tuesday night. You can check it out on Facebook. And you may join her if you guys need prayer for something. Of course, big. So yes, Eva, I know Eva quite well. And yes, she is a prayer warrior. And it's certainly one of her, I would say, very strong abilities, is definitely prayer. So we'll continue on. Now, this might be a difficult question for some, but we're gonna tackle it. So share about a time when God didn't answer a prayer the way you thought He should. what did you learn through that experience? Well, I certainly have a bunch of those. But we'll dive into one for me. Certainly a big one. My son, of course, was diagnosed with kidney failure, right after birth, about 2 months in. He was diagnosed with kidney failure, and of course, that was a very hard news to take as a new father, and being very helpless to change anything in that moment. And so I turned to God. I prayed. I prayed for a different outcome. I prayed for a miracle of healing. I prayed for anything. I prayed anything that would be able to help my son to turn this diagnosis around, to make it different, that this wouldn't be the end. But unfortunately, that's not the answer that I got. My answer was a no. I didn't get the yes, and that certainly was hard for me. It wasn't something that I was expecting. That's not what I was expecting, and so it was hard. It was hard to have that no, and it really really made me question a lot. And where do I stand? Where does God stand? Why isn't He answering this for me? But a lot of ups and downs through that. But again, through that experience, I really learned that we're put in places that we can grow from. And this was an area that I needed to grow in. And as a family, this actually allowed us to really rely on others. It allowed us to get an opportunity to meet families in similar situations that we never would have met. And even through that, be able to share the gospel with some of these families, allowing us to have an opportunity to share our story, to share our differences, to share what's different for us. How are we getting through this? I've been asked that many times by families, that how do you guys get through this so well? How is your marriage so strong? The answer is God. God brought us through that. He didn't bring us past it. He brought us through it. And that perseverance for us has certainly changed our outlook on a lot of things. And also it grew our bond as a couple stronger, and also, again, allowed us to share that gospel. Those for me are the three big things that I learned and experienced through that, and that I'm stronger and I have more perseverance than I thought I did. And it got me through that perseverance that really drove me further, and allows me now to drive through other difficult challenges that we face. And God really made a big difference for me there, and helped me to really learn to rely on Him to get me through it, because I know I couldn't get through it on my own, and without having the people around me that we had to rely on, because we couldn't do it ourselves. Having those people again around us made a big difference. Let's see here. Eva, she's been praying for people that I know and love for a long time, and for their salvation, and not getting the yes answer yet. But again, believing that God can. And that's exactly it, Eva. Sometimes sometimes that is the answer. Maybe it's just a not now, and it's not a no, but it's just a not now, or it's not the right time. And of course, we know that God's timing is the right time, even though we may think we have a better idea of when the right time is. God's got that, and we have to let Him work it through on His time, and just allow that to happen, because amazing things happen out of those times when God has that moment to actually make it come together in his time. So yes, keep praying for them, Eva, and keep praying for their salvation as God is working in them, and just keep on that. So we'll dive into this last question here. What does it look like to pray so that you can know God better? And how will you pray with that purpose in mind this week? I think it really comes back to kind of what I described earlier about what Craig was talking about having the right mind, having the right motives, and believing that God will do it, and having the faith that God will do it, and knowing that, I think is a big part of that. And again, sometimes I found myself thinking that, where maybe my faith isn't as strong as I thought it was in this prayer. Maybe I'm praying with the wrong motives. Maybe I have that broken relationship. And so for me, that really got me thinking this week about, what does that look like? Do I have a broken relationship that I need to mend? Do I need to have the right motives and not be praying to glorify myself? And continuing to pray and believe that God will make a miracle, that my faith, God will see that and know that I'm there. I think for me, that's the big one this week, that I need to have those like kind of three things in mind, as well as remembering that sometimes even in those prayers, God's got something different than what we're praying for. And it may be in a different way with that prayer, but accepting that the outcome is God's outcome, and I have to be okay with that. It's difficult. It's difficult to think that this is what you're after, this is what happened, but you have to be okay with that because it's God's plan. So yeah, praying with purpose this week, certainly, and definitely working those through in my mind and keeping those at the forefront of my prayers, that I'm doing kind of these things in the right way, that I'm not, doing it in the wrong way with the wrong motives. Because God, of course, wants and believes in our faith and knows that our faith is what brings us through. Let's see here. So yeah, praying for family and still and I'm still trusting that God's timing, that it will happen. And if not, then that's okay too. His will be done. Exactly. Yeah, it's being okay with the outcome. Sometimes that can maybe be the sticking point, is what is the outcome? And yeah, you have to accept that it's God's time, and God's got it. Eva, I think for me, to know that God can, but I know what to be asking him to show me if I'm asking selfishly. I want to be about what God is about. And that's exactly it. It's about having that right heart. And we talked about that earlier, about having the right heart, and not trying to find those wrong motives. They certainly can be the wrong ones, even though they may seem to be right. They can be wrong. So yeah, not sure what it is for you guys, but please let us know in the chat what that might look for you this week, kind of going through these with, a broken relationship, a wrong motive, maybe believing that God won't fix it or won't be able to do it. Or maybe it's God's got something different. And but let us know in the chat, guys. What's that look like for you for this week's prayer? Maybe it's just starting to pray. Maybe that's something you haven't done yet before. But don't be nervous. It's easy. Just speak your heart and God will hear you. And that's what matters. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be the perfect words, or you have to have the the right language or this. Just speak from your heart. Let God hear you. And that's what he's after. So, of course, I want to thank everyone. We are, of course, wrapping up here. We are flying through time. That was really fast. But of course, want to thank everyone for joining us. I want to thank the production team behind me that makes this, of course, all run. So I can actually be here to do this each week. So I want to thank all of them. I want to thank everybody for joining us. And again, if you're looking for more information, there'll be links in the chat, description, stuff like that. It'll all be there. You guys, of course, can check out us on Facebook. We have Facebook Campus. There's always, of course, lots going on there. Pictures, games, things all kind of happening all the time. Again, to help keep us stay connected, because we know that is extremely important. Of course, our Sunday messages, as I described before, are on our YouTube channel at lifenorth.church. And of course, if you guys want to dig even deeper into these questions, further than we did tonight, please join a life group or start a life group. You, 2 friends, you guys can make this happen. It's great to have different perspectives. I know for me in my life group, it makes a big difference. We get to have real good, deep conversations and really get to get more out of the message than just sitting and watching it on a Sunday or another day of the week. And of course, we want to invite you back here next Monday, 7 o'clock. We'll be here doing this again, going through the questions. So we'd love to have you guys back. And of course, we want to remind you that whoever finds God finds life.